switch over to our next speaker. He's already online here and sitting in a wonderful wine garden. It looks at least like it. Gilad, right? Gilad?
Close. It's Gilad. Nice to meet everyone.
Yeah. So Gilad is our next speaker, like entrepreneur from the core, and actually talking about what's your topic? I don't have your topic, Gilad, but I would like to talk about what you already accomplished in your life. You have a master's from LSE, which is amazing, on social business and entrepreneurship. So you're really talking about bringing the blockchain into the sustainability area. That's what I'm seeing when I'm looking at your CV. So, and then also traveling has been part of your life a lot. Impact traveling initiatives you have founded. You have co-founded quite a good amount of ventures. I would encourage people to look at his LinkedIn profile. Indigo was a venture lab on mental health and inner transformation. So it looks like you're really curious, and also you have been done a research project in the New York University on sustainable tourism. And in today's world, you're working on Bitgreen, which is a sustainable blockchain. Amazing, I love it. I'm also a fan of supporting these kind of thoughts. And so I'm happy to welcome you here in our forum and inviting you to share your contribution here on our topics. And I'd like to hand over, Mike, and you can already share the screen. I can hear you well, I can see the screen. You're good to go.
All right. Thank you for the kind introduction. And I suppose different from Yuri, who's clearly an expert in what he does, I am the classic generalist. So
very good.
Yeah.
So my alley as well. Yeah.
Awesome. I guess the common denominator in my background is social entrepreneurship. That's kind of what I've been involved in different industries now in blockchain. So hi, everyone. My name is Gilad. I am currently in Portugal. Mediterranean wine. It's super hot here. And I'm also the co-founder of Bitgreen and the lead on partnerships. And we're proudly members of the .Sama universe, currently in testnet with the hopes of attaining a parachain in the coming months. So as you may know, the ecosystem that is known as .Sama is one in which every parachain will have its own role to play. One will be the bank. One will be more EVM. In our case, our purpose is, well, it's purpose. We exist as the impact hub in the .Sama universe. And our goal is to actualize on the potential that this breakthrough technology has for impact on a truly global scale. So a bit of background. And by the way, let me actually, maybe it's not looking as good as it should be. That might be better. Okay, so we have a whole ton of crises. As everyone knows, they're all interrelated, but truly these crises are also really compelling opportunities. This is our generation's bags, the big, hairy, audacious goals. It's our generation's moon landing, Our job is to stop this. So what does carbon have to do with this? The topic of my talk will be mostly around the work we're doing around carbon credits and ecosystem services. If you guys were at a Polkadot Decoder, you may have heard my co-founder and CEO, Adam, give the overall vision of Bitgreen, and we made the announcement in which we will be, along with Sequester, be taking the entire ecosystem climate positive, which includes offsetting the entire ecosystem of .Sama, but way more than that. So this is just a continuation, really an explanation of what the heck carbon credits really are. I won't get into the details and science of climate change. There's far more better suited individuals to explain how this is truly a man-made disaster. But just in brief, there is a clear correlation between the rise in greenhouse gas emissions that we are emitting since the Industrial Revolution and the rise in temperature. And it is scorching right now. And this rise in temperature is actively destabilizing Earth as we know it. And it may lead us to the point of no return. So, okay. So why carbon then, right? There's different gases. Carbon happens to be the most numerous, and and the most, basically pound for pound, just the most abundant of the gases that are let out. It may not be the most lethal on its own, but in terms of the amount of time they'll stay up there and how much of it is released, that's why that's basically the sort of the unit that's being used. So it's often termed CO2e. It's basically carbon dioxide equivalent. All these other gases could be basically divvied up into equivalents of carbon dioxide. And that is why we're using that as the basic measurement, if you will. The beast, we name it, is climate change. And unfortunately, I think we're thinking about it all wrong, about really how climate change should be solved. It's no longer an issue of mitigating and reducing alone. We're clearly past that stage. It's now a story of having to actively remove carbon from the atmosphere. Carbon removal, carbon sequestration, many different solutions. It has to be done now. And the conversation needs to be in the gigatons. I was at an investment conference focusing on agroforestry and agriculture, and the entire conversation was about millions of tons and billions of tons. And just like jaw hit the floor, no one was talking about gigatons. And that's really the measurements we need to be talking about. And there's also this. First of all, climate change is definitely a massive problem, but all the other issues that are top of mind for people, inequality, hunger, all 17 SDGs, barring from UN parlance, they're all interconnected, right? Climate change exacerbates tensions between peoples as water dries up and the land gives less and less land. Kids are forced to stop studying, start working. This disproportionately impacts people of color and women. Like, it all connects to overexploitation of natural habitats, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Moreover, there's a price tag. Some research, so 50 trillion is kind of the official thing. Some researchers said it's actually double post-COVID, but let's be conservative and say it's a small $50 trillion. Many people will be paralyzed by that. I find this actually exhilarating. And the reason I find this exhilarating is because we have a North Star, we have a price, we know what we need to reach. And also I know that the world has more than enough money for this. There's more than enough supply of capital, and there are more than enough demand in the form of incredible projects that could take us to a world that we know in our hearts is possible. They just don't seem to meet one another. And that's the issue. And that's where Bitcoin comes in. So we're launching a purpose-built blockchain that's focused on connecting the dots between supply and demand for capital. Web3 technology, we believe, is uniquely suited to solve many of those challenges. And tools such as marketplaces and carbon credits and other forms of credits are strategically of asset in this process. I'm going to focus on the what's written as commodity markets, essentially carbon and ecosystem services credits. But just a brief primer of what we're at. So I mentioned launching a power chain. That's sort of the foundations of everything on top of it. We'll be releasing our kind of carbon-based tokenomics scheme that's going to be that we're currently working on. That will sort of govern how the coin works. On top of that, we're building a thriving ecosystem for different teams that have a shared vision to actualize on their vision in one like hub for impact. But we're also seeding the grounds with a few applications. The first one is what's termed here debt markets. Basically, it's green bonds. We're going to be launching a compliant crowdfunding marketplace for things like project finance and working capital. So think a hydropower plant that needs $100 million, or microfinance that's looking for more mission-aligned capital than, say, hedge funds. So this is triple bottom line debt, and that is the majority of what this impact investing sector has, is debt. Unfortunately, it's usually tied up by massive multinational institutions and those in the know. And so individuals and frankly, almost everyone doesn't have access to these deals, and we make it available. The second piece of the puzzle is carbon credits, or rather ecosystem services. So that includes the carbon credits. It also includes plastic credits, biodiversity credits. And we believe there's going to be a whole long tail of impact that's basically built in a quantifiable way and then tokenized to put on chain. So our mission is to move 1 trillion of that 50 trillion into carbon and green financing within 10 years. Audacious goal. That's what we're about. Just audacious goals. Okay, so now get into the bread and butter of this talk. What is a carbon credit? So it's been a controversial topic since basically the notion or the concept was created and brought to life. it's not really a commodity, right? You can't use it to fuel your car or to feed your family. It's not truly philanthropy because certain aspects of it are forced upon people. There's a compliance aspect to it. And it's not a security really, even though given the market growth, it's just growing up. So people are buying for speculatory reasons. Carbon credits were originally created basically as an economic tool to halt the impact of industrialization, the evil byproduct, if you will. Essentially, it was conceptualized to be part of a compliance scheme, a stick, if you will, a tax incentivized decarbonization. Now, the notion was as the price of basically it'd be totally globally mandated, right? And everyone would have a cap that they have to reach, after which they have to basically pay a tax for emitting carbon. And eventually the price of the carbon credits would go up and people will be further incentivized to invest in R&D, find ways to decarbonize until there's very little of it that needs to be emitted. Unfortunately, the way the cookie crumbled in this world is that we have a few areas where there is a compliance market. And it's a pretty valuable market, as you can see. Europe is one, California is a few others, but most of the world, that never went. So there's a growth of this nascent, basically voluntary carbon market. This is where companies like Stripe and Microsoft shine, where they're not mandated, they don't have to do it, yet they still put out funds in order to invest. And they're often doing it in very breakthrough carbon removal technology. They're one of the reasons we've gone as far as we have. Clearly, it's not enough. Okay, what are the problems with carbon credits? So aside from the fact that the original mandate concept kind of fell by the wayside and likely won't happen in our lifetime, there's a few specific problems that this sector has. One thing is that a lot of it's still using low tech and inefficient, and it takes a long time to actually accredit a project. We're talking years and very costly. So there's a high bar for entering. Number two, most of it is done in a way that's opaque. It's OTC. You'll get one price from one person. There'll be arbitrage issues, kind of nasty on the front. And the end result is that those on the front lines, the indigenous communities that are actually the stewards of our lands, the communities that are doing the work, often get a trickle of the billions that you just saw. And so where do we come in on this? So as we said, or as I said rather, we're firm believers in the potential that impact credits and these marketplaces have, really to recognize and remunerate those on the front lines that are already doing the work. So as such, the first application we're launching in this world of ecosystem service credits is a marketplace. It combines the best of e-commerce you'd see on Web 2 with the best that Web 3 can enable. So what does that mean? Imagine a marketplace where instead of logging in with your email and password, you log in with your wallet. And then you have access to all these different projects, which you could filter by SDG or filter by location. There's full data rooms. There'll be audit trails on these projects where you basically see the inputs coming in, the audits in real time. So you'll be able to see the carbon stock if they're using satellite imagery. You'll be able to see the drafts of the applications if you're looking to do that research. This is the kind of stuff that doesn't really exist at this point. You could purchase by the project. You could purchase bundle tokens. So that is several projects put in, which allows you to de-risk the whole equation and provide more liquidity. It's a really user-intuitive kind of foundation. But that's just the beginning, because that's already happening by others. There's some great marketplace out there. We think ours is quite good, but that's just the beginning. That allows us to get into things like carbon project finance. One of the main issues that a lot of early stage projects have is that, as I said, they don't have access to even $50,000 to start a concept note. So through mechanisms such as this thing called a forward contract, where you're basically paying now to get future credits at a much cheaper rate, ideas of like green bonds, using debt as an instrument for innovative impact finance, you're able to drive a lot more capital and also release or provide liquidity to those who are already invested in an older project so they could go ahead and do it in the next projects. And that's where our debt marketplace really comes in. So we're essentially allowing any individual to be able to get involved in this project from day one. The last piece of the puzzle in what we're doing in ecosystem service marketplaces, or ecosystem service credits rather, is this thing called DMRV. So M, monitoring, R, reporting, V, verification. This is the process of taking a notion that, hey, this acreage of lands, these forests have been holding carbon, and they're under threat. Sorry, hand up.
How do you do this? Are you using oracles for that?
So I'll get you into what our role specifically is. So in 1 second. So the monitoring will be done not by us as the Web3 player. It will be done by our partners who are utilizing AI and satellites, or they're using drones and remote sensing. And then they're actually also going on the ground and paying, indigenous communities and locals to literally do measurements and take photos. All of that comes into our chain. And that's where blockchain is of use. That allows the transparent audit trail, that allows for the ability to coordinate and collaborate using things like community currencies. It allows for tokenization and easy distribution, secondaries, that whole thing. And that really goes back to like this notion of reporting, which I was going to talk about. Currently, people are doing it in 600-page workbooks. There's an application that's like heavier than me that gets set to us the registry, which is the final kind of like answer as to whether a project is approved or not. And then it sits there in PDF form. So if you wanted to do the research and actually like audit, and there's a lot of shoddy projects as well, you can't really do it because who's going to be able to do it with a 600-page PDF? And the verification, like every one of these things, every player here gets paid. So if a project is 100%, you have to pay a bit for the MRV, you have to pay a bit for the verifiers, the registry, the broker, which gets the most. In a way that's doing a DMRV, the costs are cheapened, the process is expedited. You match that with the funding that I was talking about earlier and the marketplace, and you have a vision for a much more scalable opportunity. So with the question that was brought up, what's our role? So I'll walk you through a quick use case. This is an active project of ours. Okay, so in the Ucayali region of Peru, so it's all the way on the eastern part, the Amazon kind of borders around Brazil. There is a massive tract of land, can reach upwards of 2.5 million hectares. And this land there's title to it. It's owned by a specific indigenous community. It's well known. It's one of the most well-known indigenous communities. And for generations, they've been serving as stewards of the land. They've been keeping it the way it is. Unfortunately, in our present global system, this is considered an externality. They're not paid for it, right? Altruism and things of the sort are not accounted for GDP. And so they've gotten the rough end of the stick since forever. And many of them live well under the poverty line. They struggle to protect their legacy, which includes some of the richest treasure troves of plant medicine and Amazonian spirituality. And presently in this ecosystem, they're directly and acutely threatened by illegal logging, palm oil companies with horrendous human records, narco traffickers, among other things. Enter REDD+. So REDD stands for reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. And the plus signifies the role that conservation, sustainable management, and enhancement of the carbon stock plays. Essentially, what it really is, and let's be brutally honest here, it is quantifiable and more scientifically rigorous mechanisms for transferring wealth from those who care or those who are forced to care to those who have been stewarding and doing the work for generations. It's righting wrongs, really. So beyond the fact that this sort of project ensures that the carbon remains in living trees, a supporter of REDD+ projects supports directly the lives of the individuals who are doing the work, supports the native species of flora and fauna from disappearing, and again, taking up the UN jargon of sustainable development goals, which are the goals that literally every country in the world agreed to in 2015. It touches upon almost all of them. So it is an incredibly impactful and effective way to support the fight against climate change. And what is our role in all of this? And I'm just going to do a quick time check. Okay, so Big Green, first of all, we connected between the indigenous community that has been interested in doing this and the ethically aligned project developers. This is kind of a unique thing because usually the developers come to the indigenous community like, hey, here's an opportunity. And often, not always, but they kind of get screwed over, the indigenous community. Here, this enabled the indigenous community to stand their ground, to lead the entire project, including the master plan of how the money will be distributed, and own or earn most of the funds. Now, this is a massive project, and it's a decades-long project. Like a Red Plus project from get-go, it takes 2 years for it to go to the point where it could start issuing credits, and then it could issue credits for upwards of 40 years, depending on how much the community does the work, right? In theory, 40 years, a project like this could be anywhere from 3 to 10 million credits per year. A credit currently is $10 to $15. This is a $1 billion+ project. This is life-changing for the community, and it will protect the lungs of our earth. And that's the whole point. So BitGreen connected the dots, brought in the financing. And then as to the question, we are serving as basically the database for the satellites and AI MRV provider, the boots on the ground who are sending information, all the assessment copies of the concept note, the feasibility study onwards, it's all on chain and available for anyone to look. And then we provide the marketplace, the distribution point for those credits. All of it done on chain. This is basically the bread and butter of what Web3 could do for impact. So I know I'm running against time, so I'm going to do this real quick. But basically, why Polkadot? Polkadot is uniquely suited to be the epicenter of impact, bar none. Few reasons. Number one, it's already the most fuel efficient or energy efficient of the major blockchains. And then with our work, it's going to be totally climate positive. Number two, the unique setup of the parachains allows for parachains to specialize. So when we get really multifaceted, difficult problems that we alone can't do, we could go to our trusted partners, the bank, right? Akala, Identity, Manta, or Kilts, EVM compatibility beyond what we could offer, Moonbeam, and onwards, Origin Trail for supply chain. I mean, just incredible people that I was fortunate enough to meet in Berlin this past week. You add those two together, and really like long-term security that Polkadot offers, it's the recipe for literally Polkadot being the epicenter for impact. And you know, there are others who are doing incredible work, and we're not going to be the only, but if we all could work together, we could really reach scale in the trillions. So that's about us a bit. I'll stop there. And yeah, this is our mission, and it could be yours. It could be ours together. Please reach out if you have any questions. We're always looking for allies and partners, and we can only do this together. That's it.
Amazing, cool talk, Gilad. I mean, I like it, I love it, and also the initiative. I have questions. Leave the slides. The slides are amazing. They look good and they are very informative. Yeah, maybe, but let me put the question to the audience. Is there some comments, questions from the audience here for Gilad?
I crushed it.
So no, I have plenty of questions. Like so if I have a project who is contributing into the sustainability goals, you're looking at carbon is there any like decision criteria for you or selection criteria for projects?
Yeah, that's a great question. We we brought on in-house. So first of all, we're smart enough to know we're not smart enough.
Okay, good. You have those. You have those. You have those criteria. Yeah.
So
okay,
we're social. Okay.
Where do I find them? You know, I'm very concrete. You know, like where do I find them, and how do I convince you to support like a project? How do I do that? How's the process? How do I do this? Because I have projects here in Bali. I'm living in Bali. Yeah, and they're looking for funds, and they're very like good stuff. And so I'm very specifically asking.
Great. First of all, reach out to me. And when it comes to like assessing the criteria, the policy isn't out yet, but it'll be run by our head of audits and integrity, Robin, who spent 20 years doing this, worked with names like SustainCert. We're currently crafting the official policy, which will be released, but in the meantime, it will be done internally to have the conversations. And then on top of that, we're building a growing advisory board of experts in every basically form of methodology. So one's focused on regenerative agriculture, the other is focusing on plastics recycling, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, just reach out to me, info@bitgreen.org or Gilad@bitgreen.org.
And when I'm having a project, like how do I save these funds? How do I identify these funds? Do you put those credits or these carbon credits in tokens, or how do you do that technically?
Well, so there's two ways. You either go through one of the legacy registries. The biggest one that many people may know is called Vera. And these are the type of registries that once you have your credits there, if you're approved by them, you're golden. Any company would want to buy your credits. The other way to go about it is self-issued credits. So these are projects that whose methodology hasn't gone through Vera. For example, we're going to be working with another indigenous community that does not want to wait for a Vera project. It'll take 2 years. They also are backed by a very well-known DJ. And so we're going to provide them with the MRV services and the ability to tokenize. That's going to be done on our website, like on BitGreen. There'll be essentially a registry with specific credits, and each one will be basically an NFT that holds all the information. And then they will go forward and start issuing them and making them available, marketing, distribution. But most companies or buyers won't really get excited about that because, there's something about brand and like the threat of, or the risk associated with buying stuff that isn't already approved by a third party. But again, we could discuss all the details, no problem.
Cool. Thank you. Very, very, very interesting and cool. So BitGreen is on Polkadot and using, but you're not like a level 1 blockchain. Why are you on Polkadot? Can you technically in the last 2 minutes give me an update, like so that I get it, like why Polkadot for you?
So we will be we are a layer 1. We're building a layer 1 power chain. We're going to start the bidding. We started actually last week. We put first opportunity to start bidding on DOT and Kusama. The reason we decided to be our own power chain as opposed to a set of smart contracts or DApps and someone else. And believe me, this question comes up a lot. A few reasons. One, I think one of the greatest parts about Polkadot is that rather than having one chain, one set of autonomy, one set of basically governance, one sort of like mandates, every chain is able to take the full advantages of a general purpose blockchain while also taking advantage of the shared security and interoperability. That's just like unique, and it's just brilliant. As Gavin called it, it's the NATO of blockchains. And so we think that we need to have our own blockchain so that we could be multifaceted. It's not just about specifically marketplaces. We're also doing projects that are essentially onboarding legacy nonprofits and other organizations that don't need the marketplace. If we were just a set of smart contracts and something specific, we would not be able to do that. And also it allays the risk of losing our autonomy. In theory, if the guys above us make decisions that are against nature, if we don't have our autonomy, we kind of be screwed.
I got it. Okay, good. Makes sense. You closed the gap here. Like, I got it. Thank you, Gilad. Good. And like you really like spot on. You use the time wisely. At least you got my heart and my mind from your talk and your idea. Please share your contacts in the chat. I think people are interested to get in contact with you. And with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for investing time and effort to join us and enrich our conference here as an amazing speaker. Gilad, thank you.